You are officially Brachiosaurus. Congratulations, you are the icon of the Jurassic, the long-necked celebrity that everyone loves in movies. But let's tear down the poster now. Your existence is a monument to biological inefficiency. Forget serene majesty. You are an organic structure pushed to the brink of collapse. A tower of flesh built with questionable quality materials. Your life doesn't begin with affection or mother's milk. It begins in a damp pit, buried under rotting vegetation, because your 40-ton mother follows the radical strategy. In other words, she bets on market saturation, not product quality. You are one among dozens of eggs the size of a soccer ball, limited by the basic physics of gas diffusion. If the egg were larger, the shell would be too thick, and you'd suffocate before hatching. You hatch weighing a measly 3 kilograms, the size of a jacked-up house cat, but with the absurd mission of increasing your mass 15,000 times. This isn't healthy growth. It's a desperate metabolic explosion, a biological overclock. And the worst part, you are absolutely alone. Your mother left weeks ago. She is a biological tank with no time for babysitting. You hatch precocial, which is just a fancy scientific way of saying you're born ready to be hunted. The world out there, the Morrison Formation, is a meat grinder. You are an awkward neonate with a ridiculous neck and beta-version motor control, surrounded by predators who see you as nothing but a crunchy Jurassic nugget. The statistic is clear. 95% of your clutch will become fertilizer or lunch before turning 1 year old. If you think the danger is only what has teeth out there, think again. Your biggest initial enemy is the architecture of your own home. Your mother didn't incubate you with body heat. If she sat on the nest, she'd make a 40-ton omelet. Instead, she buried you in a mound of earth and rotting vegetation. That's right, your nursery is technically a compost heap. The heat comes from bacterial fermentation. Cozy, right? The problem is this biological oven is a potential gas chamber. Your eggshell is extremely porous, a calcium sieve made to let air in. If it rains too much and the nest gets waterlogged, the physics of gas diffusion fails, and you drown, asphyxiated inside your own shell before taking your first breath. It's meteorological Russian roulette. And if it doesn't rain, you fight for oxygen with your dozens of siblings piled in the dark, in an environment saturated with carbon dioxide. Many of you die right there, victims of hypoxia or fungi that invade the shell. And for your mother, the process wasn't a walk in the park either. The fossil record is full of pathological eggs retained in the uterus, calcified in layers of agony. It's quite likely your birth was the traumatic event that killed your progenitor from exhaustion or peritonitis. You arrive in the world causing damage, a parasite that drains calcium and life, emerging from a pit of fermenting trash to face a 99% mortality rate. Let's start by solving your identity crisis. You think you're that elegant giant that sneezed on the girl in the classic movie? Wrong. That was your African cousin, Giraffe branchi, much more complete and photogenic. You, Brachiosaurus altithorax, are the generic North American version, heavier, with a ridiculously puffed-out chest and bones found in pieces. Science took decades to admit you were different animals, which just proves that to us, one pile of Jurassic meat is the same as another. But your real humiliation is the design. You weren't designed from scratch to be a giant. You are the result of a grotesque inflation of a basic tetrapod body plan. Evolution took the design of a small animal and just stretched everything in a biological Photoshop until the pixels burst. The result is an engineering kludge that violates any basic safety standard. You are a building constructed on the foundation of a shack. The supreme example of this stupidity is your recurrent laryngeal nerve. In intelligent design, this nerve would connect the brain to the throat, a journey of a few centimeters. Because of an embryological flaw inherited from ancestral fish, this nerve leaves the brain, goes all the way down your 10-meter neck, takes a useless detour around the aorta down in your chest, and climbs all the way back up. It's almost 50 meters of neuron, the longest cell in history, for a local connection. You live with severe biological input lag. If you try to shout, the signal takes half a second to process. You live life with audio delay. Your existence isn't just a design error. It's an insult to thermodynamics. You live at the absolute digital limit of what physics allows on a planet with Earth's gravity. To support those 50 tons without collapsing like a sandcastle, evolution had to cheat. Your vertebrae aren't solid, reliable bones. They are hollow, pneumatized structures, full of air sacs like a bird's. You are essentially a flesh and blood blimp anchored to the ground, trying not to explode under its own pressure. This engineering solution creates laughable structural fragility. A strong lateral impact to your neck doesn't cause a bruise. It causes catastrophic material failure. You are made of hollow glass and hope. And don't be fooled into thinking your size guarantees success. The Morrison Formation, your home, isn't a winner's podium. It's a mass failure cemetery. The fossil record doesn't show glorious armies of brachiosaurs marching. It shows disarticulated, scattered, ruined bones. Sudden floods and droughts turn your size advantage into an immediate death sentence. Small animals hide and wait for the crisis to pass. You are too big to hide and too expensive to maintain. If the food runs out for a week, your metabolic engine shuts down. You have no plasticity. You are a rigid system, waiting for the first strong breeze to topple over and become a geological statistic. Against all statistical odds, you didn't suffocate in the nest. Congratulations, you've entered the most painful phase of your existence, industrial adolescence. If growing hurts in humans, imagine multiplying your body mass by 15,000 times in less than 2 decades. This isn't biological development, it's a violation of the laws of physics. You don't grow, you violently inflate. To sustain this absurd expansion rate, your skeleton lives in a state of constant emergency. The histology of your bones reveals the ugly truth. You are made of fibrolamellar bone. Basically, your body deposits fast, porous bone tissue like low-quality scaffolding and tries to fill it in with reinforced concrete while you're still running from predators. It's like building a skyscraper during an earthquake. This aggressive remodeling has a price: chronic pain. Your joints creak and groan under the pressure of a body that changes weight every week. Stress microfractures are your morning routine. You wake up, your bones ache, your joints creak, and the only solution is to keep eating. You aren't an animal. You are a machine for converting ferns into defective bone mass. Hunger at this stage isn't an appetite. It's a tyrannical imperative. If you stop eating for a few hours, your growth metabolism starts to cannibalize your own reserves. You live on the edge of autophagy, devouring the world to avoid devouring yourself. In this adolescent phase, you enter what ecology calls the landscape of fear. In other words, your life is a slasher film without commercial breaks. You are too big to hide in a hole, but too small to intimidate an Allosaurus or a Torvosaurus. You live in the worst possible ecological niche, the family-sized snack. Your nervous system is a chemical disaster. Since vigilance must be constant, your brain is permanently bathed in cortisol and stress hormones. You don't relax. You don't have good dreams. Deep sleep is a luxury you can't afford because closing your eyes for too long means waking up in a theropod's belly. You sleep in fragmented micronaps, standing in a state of accumulated chronic fatigue. You are basically an anxious 15-ton zombie wandering the forest. And don't expect help from the group. Sauropod social dynamics aren't all for one. It's every neck for itself. If a predator appears, the herd strategy is statistical. Someone has to be eaten so the others can flee. And guess who is the weakest link? You, the clumsy adolescent still learning to control 4 legs that feel like uncoordinated poles. A stumble, a misstep in the mud, and you become the necessary distraction so the adults can escape. Your gang doesn't protect you. They use you as disposable meat shield. Welcome to glorious adulthood. You've reached 50 tons and are now officially a slave to your own metabolism. Your entire existence has been reduced to a single tyrannical imperative: fill the tank. You don't eat because you enjoy it. You eat because stopping means dying. You are an industrial vacuum cleaner addicted to terrible quality plant matter. Forget the idea of a peaceful herbivore chewing succulent leaves. The Jurassic is a culinary desert. You feed on hard conifers, toxic cycads, and ginkgos that taste like old wood. And the best part, you don't chew. Your mouth has no molars to grind. Your teeth are chisels, simple incisors made to rip off whole branches and swallow everything without processing. You don't savor, you just fill the dumpster. The destination of this mass of wood and thorns is your stomach, which isn't a normal digestive organ. It's a biological fermentation cement mixer. Inside, bacteria and stones you've swallowed, gastroliths, try to turn wood into energy. The byproduct of this is obvious and humiliating: gas. You are a walking methane factory. Your belly lives distended, bloated in permanent colic. The risk of tympany, becoming so full of gas that your lungs are crushed from the inside, is real. Your adult life is an eternal, noisy indigestion, where you walk slowly, farting methane and trying not to explode while swallowing another thorny branch. Now let's talk about the suicidal engineering that keeps you upright. Your neck, that marvel tourists adore, is your greatest cardiovascular enemy. To pump blood up to your brain on the 10th floor, your heart needs to operate at insane pressure, something around 700 millimeters of mercury. That's not high blood pressure, it's industrial pressure. Your heart isn't a romantic organ. It's a hypertrophied concrete pump with walls so thick there's barely room for blood to enter. You live on the verge of vascular explosion. Each beat is a Herculean effort to overcome gravity. And woe to you if you make sudden movements. If you raise your head too fast, the blood doesn't reach the brain, you pass out, and falling with 50 tons means breaking everything. If you lower your head too fast to drink water, the pressure reverses, and you risk an instant hemorrhagic stroke. Drinking water is a life-risking operation, and while your brain fights not to explode or dry out, your legs are suffering the opposite. The column of blood weighs tons down there, without perfect evolutionary compression stockings. Plasma leaks from capillaries into the tissues. Your legs are swollen, painful, in a state of chronic edema. You walk on pads of pressurized fluid that are always one step away from ulcerating. Being an adult brachiosaur is living balancing the chance of a stroke with the certainty of your legs rotting from poor circulation. We've arrived at the magical moment of perpetuating the species. If you were born a female brachiosaur, I'm sorry. Your love life isn't a BBC documentary with classical music in the background. It's a slow-motion industrial accident. Mating for a 50-ton animal is a logistical nightmare and an orthopedic catastrophe waiting to happen. First, forget sophisticated anatomy. Your partners don't have complex reproductive organs or dexterity. It all comes down to the cloacal kiss, an awkward maneuver requiring perfect alignment between two mountains of flesh. But to achieve this alignment, the male needs to mount. And here physics becomes your mortal enemy. Imagine a 5-story building trying to climb onto the back of another 5-story building. When the male transfers his weight onto your back, your spine and pelvis receive a point load of almost 80 combined tons. It's a material stress test at the breaking point. Your intervertebral discs scream, your femurs creak. One misstep, a slip in the mud, and your spine breaks like a dry twig. And he's not affectionate. To hold on up there, he uses the only tool he has, the thumb claw, the pollex, a sharp bone hook on his front feet. He doesn't hug you. He sinks hooks into your flanks to avoid falling, tearing your skin and opening doors for infection even before the act is over. If you survive the male's crushing embrace, congratulations. Now you begin to self-destruct from the inside out. To produce shells for dozens of eggs, your body needs calcium. And since you don't drink milk, this mineral comes from the only available place, your own skeleton. You enter a state of bone cannibalism, dissolving your ribs and femurs to manufacture embryo packaging. You develop an acute, temporary osteoporosis just to be a mother. And the moment of birth? Science calls it oviposition. You call it torture. Sometimes the system fails. Stress, lack of calcium, or an infection can cause dystocia, egg retention. The egg gets stuck in the oviduct. Your panicking body calcifies another shell around it, creating egg-within-egg aberrations. The fossil record is full of these tragedies. You die slowly with a block of calcified rot inside you, causing peritonitis and excruciating pain, unable to expel the future of the species. If all goes well, you dig a hole with feet not made for digging, dump the clutch, and leave immediately. Don't expect a Mother's Day card. You need to abandon your children. If you stayed to protect them, your 50,000 kilograms would turn the nursery into a pancake the first time you turned around. Your motherhood boils down to dissolving your own bones, risking death from an impacted egg, and fleeing the crime scene, never to see your offspring again. You look at your reflection in the water and see a solitary giant. Wrong. You are never alone. In fact, you are a walking ecosystem, a continent of warm flesh made to host the most disgusting creatures of the Mesozoic. If we analyze your coprolites, fossilized feces, the truth appears. You are infested. Your gut is a party hall for nematodes and trematodes, kilos of worms that steal your nutrients and cause colic that would make a mammal cry. But the worms don't stay in the belly. The life cycle of these parasites involves visceral migration. The larvae pierce your intestine, navigate through your bloodstream, puncture your liver, and reach your lungs. There they cause verminous pneumonia. And here enters the biomechanical nightmare. To clear your lungs, you need to cough. Try coughing with a 10-meter-long trachea. The spasm to expel phlegm full of larvae is a seismic event that shakes your entire body, wasting absurd energy just for you to swallow the worms back. And if it's bad inside, it's torture outside. The Jurassic has fleas, but not those little dog fleas. We're talking about the genus Pseudopulex, giant 2 centimeters fleas with serrated mouth parts that look like industrial hypodermic needles. They don't bite, they perforate your tough hide like nails. You live covered in clouds of mosquitoes and armored ticks. And the cruel detail, you have no hands to scratch. Your tail can't reach your neck. You feel the bite, the maddening itch, the blood running, and you can't do absolutely anything about it except rub against trees until your skin bleeds. If the external itching doesn't drive you insane, what happens inside your neck will. Remember those hollow vertebrae that make you light? Biology has a name for warm, damp, dark places, fungus incubators. You are prone to a dreadful disease called air saculitis. Fungi and bacteria invade the air sacs inside your bones. The result? You have pneumonia inside your spine. Pus accumulates in the bone cavities with nowhere to go. The pressure increases, the bone tissue necrotizes, and starts to leak through fistulas in your skin. Basically, your bones rot and weep pus while you're still using them. Every breath is a stab in the neck. You feel your own structure melting, an osteomyelitis caused by the simple act of breathing. And when you're limping, feverish, and full of worms, your neighbors will notice. The Allosaurus and the Saurophagonax don't want an epic battle of titans. They want easy meat. And here's the final cruelty of your size. You take too long to die. The predator doesn't need to kill you to start eating. They just need to immobilize you. They start with the hind legs and soft viscera. Due to your mass and blood pressure, you go into shock slowly. You watch, conscious and paralyzed by exhaustion, as you are devoured alive, piece by piece, serving as a fresh self-service buffet because your stubborn heart refuses to stop beating. Congratulations, Jurassic Geriatric. You defied statistics and reached old age. You must be expecting respect, wisdom, and rest, right? Forget it. In nature, old age isn't an achievement. It's a manufacturing defect that evolution didn't bother to correct. Your body, this cathedral of flesh, is now collapsing under its own weight. Decades supporting gravity have taken their toll. Your synovial joints, once lubricated, have dried up. The cartilage is gone. Now every step you take is an event of raw friction, bone grinding against bone, biological sandpaper grinding your joints. You no longer walk, you drag 50 tons of throbbing pain. Analysis of your bones reveals osteophytes, bone spurs that grow like stalactites on your vertebrae, fusing your spine into a rigid, inflamed bar. Your neck, your vital tool, locks up. Deforming spondylosis welds your cervical vertebrae. You lose range of motion. That juicy branch at the top of the Araucaria tree? Forget it. You can no longer lift your head without feeling like the back of your neck is on fire. You become a downgraded brachiosaur, forced to eat the low, dirty vegetation you despised your whole life. You've turned into a rusted crane that can't lift its load anymore, trapped in a body that screams with every millimeter of movement. And if the joint pain isn't enough, your mouth finally quits. Your teeth, those little chisels you used to ravage forests for decades, are worn down to the roots. The tooth replacement rate, which was frenetic in youth, fails in senescence. You desperately try to rip hard branches with bare, painful gums. The result is obvious: mechanical starvation. You enter the phase of slow inanition. Your stomach cement mixer is still there, demanding tons of food, but the entrance is blocked by your useless mouth. You start to consume yourself. Your body burns fat reserves, then muscles. You lose tons of weight, your skin becomes loose, hanging on your bones, but you keep walking, a giant skeleton powered by metabolic stubbornness. You starve to death with a belly full of fiber you can no longer process. And then comes the moment physics saved for last: the fall. It could be dizziness from heart failure, or a simple slip in the mud. For a mouse, falling is nothing. For you, falling is a high-speed traffic accident. The kinetic energy of 40 tons hitting the ground shatters your ribs like cheap glass. Bone fragments puncture your lungs. Internal organs explode under the impact. Once on the ground, the rule is clear: game over. You don't get up. You lie there immobile, feeling thirst and pain, while the small predators start to circle, patiently waiting for the feast to begin. You think the humiliation ended when your heart exploded and you fell in the mud? Not a chance. Humans, that hairless ape species that appeared much later, ensured your shame would be eternal through bad science and cheap tourism. First, the identity crisis in museums. The world's most famous skeleton, that giant everyone takes photos of in Berlin? That's not you. That's Giraffatitan. You, the original American brachiosaur, are so incomplete and fragmented that museums need to create plaster Frankensteins to display you. They take a bone from you, mix it with another from an individual that died kilometers away, complete the rest with sculpture, and call it a specimen. You don't even have the right to be an honest corpse. You are a collage of mortal remains pretending to be an animal. Then we have the snorkel offense. For decades, paleontologists looked at your bones and thought, this animal is too fat and pathetic to walk on dry land. They drew you living in swamps with water up to your neck, using the nostrils on top of your head as a snorkel. They convinced the world you were a fat buoy rejected by gravity. Today we know the water pressure would have crushed your lungs if you did that, but the image of the swamp creature stuck. And the final joke, the myth of oil. People love to say they put dinosaur in their car's gas tank. Sorry to inform you, oil comes from plankton and algae. You didn't even get to become gasoline. You turned into dust, useless sediment. The only resurrection you got was becoming a cheap plastic toy made in China, painted the wrong colors with messed up anatomy, to be chewed on by children. That is your great legacy, an anatomically incorrect $1.99 toy. Let's go to the closing of your disastrous biography. You won't have a dignified death fighting a predator one-on-one. Your end is wet, dirty, and shameful. The setting is one of those periodic Jurassic droughts. You are thirsty, that desperate thirst only a 50-ton animal knows. You smell water in an almost dry riverbed. You descend the bank. Your front feet touch the mud. Seems firm, right? You step forward, and then physics betrays you one last time. The crust breaks. Your feet sink into a pit of quicksand and clayey mud. You try to pull your leg back, but you create a suction vacuum. Panic hits. You struggle, but with your weight, every upward movement pushes the rest of your body deeper. You are stuck. Now you are a statue of flesh trapped in the ground, screaming with that half-second delay for help that won't come. But the sound attracts visitors. The Allosaurus and the Ceratosaurus appear. They see you are immobilized. They don't need to kill you. They know you aren't going anywhere. They start eating you from the back, where the skin is softer. You feel the bites, the flesh being torn off, the warm blood running into the cold mud. You are alive, conscious, watching your own dismemberment, serving as a fresh self-service buffet for the local fauna, while the mud embraces you like a shroud. The agony doesn't last minutes, it lasts days. While the big predators get their fill and leave to sleep off their digestion, the night shift takes over. Beetles, scavengers, and clouds of flies cover your eyes and open wounds. You are devoured on a microscopic and macroscopic scale simultaneously. The blood loss finally makes your blood pressure, that which was always your nightmare, drop to zero. Your hypertrophied heart gives one last useless beat and stops. The giant has fallen. But the post-life humiliation continues. The Jurassic sun cooks your carcass. Internal fermentation continues, but now with no outlet. You swell up, turning into a balloon of putrid gas, until the skin can't hold it and boom. You explode, scattering rotten viscera into the mud that imprisoned you. It's the final act of your biology, a stink bomb. With time, the flesh disappears. The bones remain, but nature isn't organized. A sudden flood, the same that used to kill your hatchlings, comes back to kick your corpse. The water scatters your skeleton for kilometers. A femur goes here, a vertebra there. You cease to be an individual and become geological debris. Millions of years later, when a paleontologist finds you, they won't find the majestic Brachiosaur. They'll find a pile of disassociated bones, a mess they'll have to guess how to assemble. You died as you lived, an awkward, incomplete, hard-to-understand structure whose only real purpose was to convert entire forests into methane and suffering.